Hello, I'm doing a voiceover of this video because my microphone had a problem. What we have here is the MiniGT of the Mazda Miata, the first generation. It's number 288 in classic red. And so I like this car because I used to have one of these myself. Uh, yeah, so I have the Hobby Japan version and we're going to compare that in a moment. I'm trying to just remember what I said in this video, so bear in mind what I say and what I'm pointing to might not match up because, yeah, it's a real shame about my microphone. Alright, so typical nice packaging here from MiniGT. And let's get this thing open. Some people have criticized the windshield on this thing. It looks a little bit weird in some of the promotional pics. And so that's why I bought the Hobby Japan one first. But I like this car enough, having owned one, that I figured I'd get this anyways. So I'll get the photograph here. Looks pretty close to me. I pulled this one up for the look at the windshield, and you see the glass doesn't stick out so much there. The angle of the A-pillar, it might be a little too vertical. That's the criticism. You can see the A-pillar is leaning a little bit laid back more in the photograph. In the rear view, looks okay to me. Nothing majorly wrong there. One of the tires is a little loose on the casting though. Yeah, the tire's looking a little messed up there. So it's a typical red color. It's not metallic or anything like that. The original Miatas came that way. So just look at the windshield here. You know, since that's the main criticism. Looking at the box as well. And coincidentally, it looks like the photo on the box is the photo same size as the actual model. I haven't paid attention to that before. I'm not sure if that's true on all their boxes. I'll try to keep an eye out for that in the future. But that makes good sense though, because there's no clear window in this box. Alright. Alright, so starting from the side view here, looking at these wheels. I think there's something printed there in the middle. It's hard to focus. I think it says Mazda, yeah. So problem is it's a little offset, you know, it's not perfectly centered, but it's not bad either. Let's see about the front one, if that looks better. It's hard to get my little phone to focus on such small things. I think that's upright. I think the front one's a little bit better than the rear one. Now what I'm not liking on those tires, the tread blocks are so big. They look like truck tires or something. And also the sidewall curvature is almost non-existent. They look very flat, you know, as if they're not, there's no air inside of them and they're just solid rubber tires. The width of the tires seems relatively appropriate for this car. The real cars only had like 116 horsepower. Alright, so yeah, that tire's all messed up there. Yeah. The front tire is not looking so well either. Like, look at the sidewalls. There's some weird dents or something going on there. It's not pretty to look at. The door handle is pretty good. The casting, there's the key mechanism and then the little recess for your finger to pull. It's just that the silver paint isn't covering up the red as much as it could. The side mirrors are your rubbery MiniGT mirrors, which is great. If you drop the model, there's a good chance it'll be perfectly fine. So that's nice. There's no reflectivity in them, but it's no big deal for the price of a MiniGT. Alright. So the front, I'm interested in these turn signals. They are clear plastic, a little silver paint behind them. So that's a nice touch that, you know, something that thin, MiniGT, can put plastic turn signals in. You don't see that on like ignition models very often, which really angers me about that brand. They're so expensive and they don't put clear turn signals into some of their castings. But Mini GT will do it, and they cost a third or to 1/5 the price. Naturally, these tires are messed up. Try to fix that here. In fact, I'm gonna flip it around, see if that does any better. Pretty easy to take the tire off and put it back on. So that looks a lot better. Look at that rear tire, looks horrible. So let's flip this thing around. Yeah, that looks much better as well. Yeah, very good. So let's go to this side, flip this tire around, see if we have any luck. Looks better. And maybe we should do that. I don't know about that last one. I can't remember. No. So anyways, just flipping the tire around gives you a good 50-50 chance of making them look nicer. So that's good. There's a contaminant right there in the paint, or maybe that's actually a piece of extra metal in the casting. There's a orange reflector printed nicely. It's the proper shape. A slot like the door handle there. I think this side door handle is a little bit better. More silver paint, although still missing a little bit. Hard to see the red reflector, but it is there. Yeah. Alright. Get my finger smudges pretty easily. I have oily fingers this day. So the muffler is in the appropriate location. There's a little depth to the middle of it. The taillights are, translucent plastic. There's the orange for the turn signal there. That's supposed to be, I think, just a reflector. And then the backup there. You can see like there's some Fresnel lensing in those lenses as well. The license plate is nice. The other badging looks pretty good. Third brake light there. Mazda, Miata, right? Everything looks pretty neat. So this is the drop top in the down position. Those things latch to the windshield. That's a hand pull. I remember those seats. Yeah. There's a little stick shift there. And the Miata had a great stick shift, very much like a rifle bolts action. Very cool. Molded in details there. Vents, stereo. I don't think that's a standard steering wheel though. I'm pretty sure the Miata may have had an airbag. At least mine did, but mine was a 1993 model. Typical molded details, just painted black though. Well, not painted, it's just black plastic. So, windshield blackout is printed nicely. It's a tampo. The wiper blades are raised, painted black. And then the side molding, and then you have a little bit of the visors there sticking out there. Okay. And then Mini GTs, I think they all roll. Yeah, that's the one fault I see, that little contaminant there in the paint. Everything else is pretty good. So, busting out the tray of comparison now. And we're going to compare it to the Hobby Japan. Now, the Hobby Japan costs a lot more money, so bear that in mind. If it's better, it should be better, because, well, it's logical, right? Problem with the Hobby Japan is it has the panel gaps for the pop-up lights. Not a fan of those myself. Alright. Yeah, so those gaps there, because Hobby Japan has some with the lights up, some with the lights down, but they use the same body casting. Whereas Mini GT, they made a casting just for the down position. So I think the Mini GT actually looks better because it doesn't have those gaps. Alright. I'm just checking to see if the front bumper is a separate piece. But I think it is just part of the same casting. but the lines are pretty good. I mean, for a red painted car as well. Red usually requires a lot of paint. Alright, so you'll see there's some orange there in the Hobby Japan turn signals, and that's accurate because the thing runs orange light bulbs and has a clear lens. But MiniGT is fine too because that's just a clear lens. So I suppose Hobby Japan might be a little more accurate there. Both of them have radiator textures there inside their grills there. Technically there's no grill, it's just a radiator. I feel like the Hobby Japan might be sitting a little bit lower, the way they have the stance. But MiniGT might be more accurate. You know, stock, the Miatas weren't lowriders. I'm looking at the wheels now. The center cap of the Hobby Japan is literally protruding out of the surface of the wheel. There's like a little ledge there. See, but the real wheels are continuous. The surface of the center cap is supposed to flow into the spoke area. So MiniGT did a better job where that center cap there is flowing into that curvature right there. Whereas, Hobby Japan has this weird ledge. That center cap covers up the lug nuts, by the way. So, now the tires, though, the sidewalls here are ballooning out as if there's air inside of them. You can still see some weird tread blocks, though, almost looking like ice spike tires. But I'm going to give the tires up to Hobby Japan because the MiniGTs are too slab-sided, and then they do look like rally tires. Okay, so the interior, obviously much more detail and color going on in the Hobby Japan, but again, it costs a lot more money. You'll also see the side mirrors have reflective stickers. MiniGT doesn't, but the Hobby Japans are rigid mirrors. You drop that thing, they're going to break off. But the MiniGTs, being rubbery, they're going to survive. And you could always add paint inside of them pretty well, easily, because there's a ledge there in their mirrors. That steering wheel is obviously nicer. Some detail in the stereo, and the shifter's got paint. And so the interior as a whole is definitely better on the Hobby Japan. It also has a rear view mirror. The MiniGT does not. So, now it looks like the MiniGT is sitting lower. So I don't know what's happening there. Taillight wise, you can see the texture in the MiniGT there, but you can see behind the lens there's a light bulb on that Hobby Japan. The Hobby Japan has a little black circle in the exhaust tip, and it is dimensional, so that's better. Both have license plates, both have the badging, so I don't know, I would say the rears are generally close. Okay. I'm noticing, the door handles here. The Hobby Japan don't have as much detail. Yeah. The MiniGT door handles have more molded detail. The problem is there isn't enough silver paint covering up the red. Okay. Also, the fuel filler, maybe the red paint is filling in that gap more on the MiniGT, whereas it's easier for dark green to cover up a casting. But Hobby Japan has the silver paint there on those little metal pieces in front of the trunk, whereas MiniGT skipped that. Okay. So, yeah. I think for the money, the MiniGT is better. But Hobby Japan did better on the tires and the interior, at least on that green one. Alright. I definitely like the flexible mirrors on the MiniGT as well. And I don't like those panel gaps on the Hobby Japan. The silver one is by Konami, and that one has very loose taillights. They're literally too small for the recesses. I did swap out the wheels, that's why the wheels look nicer. But the front end is actually a totally separate piece of plastic. That's why I was checking the gap on the Mini GT. So, and then why would they mold that thing as a convertible up position, Konami? It's really strange. I don't know why they would have done that. So, the other two brands are significantly better than the Konami. There's no reason to buy the Konami unless you love the Miata like I do. Or in this case, it's called the Unos Roadster. There's no copyright date. I don't know when that Konami first came out. Maybe around 2006, if I had to guess. Okay. So I'm stopping because I want to check the windshields. The angle of them. So the windshield glass, the front surface seems pretty identical to the two, but the actual angle of the color of the A-pillar is more leaned back on the green Hobby Japan. See, that angle is like 45 degrees, but on the red Mini GT, that might be more like 50 degrees. It's just a little bit more vertical than it should be I think. It's a really minor nitpick, but it is noticeable. Right. I'm also, looking at the diameter of the wheels. It seems like the Mini GT diameter is a little bit bigger than the Hobby Japan. Okay. So what else do we have to put up here? That's I think the 4th generation Miata, and that's by Kyosho. And that's a really nice model. It's got a nice metallic red on it. It actually has silver in the mirrors. I think it's actually a crystal box Kyosho. That's why it has a little more detail than usual. But it's definitely nice. All right. So let's get this thing spinning on its own. Every model deserves its time on its own. So all in all, Mini GT as usual did a good job. The only criticisms of this might be the angle of the windscreen, but in the tires. The tire tread blocks are a little bit too off-roady. Even from this distance, you can see the tread blocks right on the side. But look at the photographs. They're bigger photographs, and you don't see any tread blocks there, right? So I'd rather have the thing have slick tires so it looks more normal from the side. But that's just my opinion. What do you guys think? I don't know. So I apologize for the voiceover, but I think I said everything that I did when I actually shot this the first time. I'm definitely going to get more Mini GTs, so hopefully you will hang out until I do so. Thanks for watching again. Sayonara.